Welcome to another Gobbet Opus, number 20, Kalor, ? From September 26, 2008. This is an award-winning podcast in that this particular blog entry was nominated for and finally included in the best science blogs of last year, and I guess will be appearing in a book, although I haven't heard from the editor in about a year or two, so maybe that disappeared. I think this is award-winning. Isn't that special? So, my normal temperature is 97, so 98.6 is a fever for me. I hear a version of that phrase at least once a week. But is it true? What is normal body temperature? 98.6. A boy band? The average IQ of the Bush administration? The marking on a mercury thermometer? You remember mercury thermometers? No? Well, back in the day, we had thermometers that used mercury to measure the temperature, and there was a red mark at 98.6. And if your temperature went above that red mark, you got to stay home from school. Now, when I was a kid, we loved to crack them open and play with the mercury, which may explain why I am more of a hatter than not. But let's go back in time. In 1896, Karl Reinhold August Wunderlich published Das Verhalten der Eigenwurm in Kragenhauten, I think, the course of temperature and diseases. Wunderlich gave 37, or 98.6, special significance in respect to normal body temperature based on 1 million observations in about 25,000 people. End quote. He did that calculation to get 98.6 without an electronic calculator. Only those crazies in Victorian times were devoted enough to spend that kind of time on calculating the average of 1 million numbers. Wunderlich gave 38 degrees, or 100.4, as the upper limit of the normal range. So, a temperature greater than 100.4 was the first quantitative definition of fever. Unfortunately, they did tests on Wunderlich's thermometers and found that they were miscalibrated by as much as 1.4 to 2.2 degrees centigrade, which is not good. So 98.6 is based on data collected on a bad thermometer. So what is normal temperature? In 1992, Phil Makoviak, using modern thermometers, measured 700 baseline oral temperatures in 148 men and women between the ages of 18 and 40. I think they were college students, so they were all at least hungover or stoned. And they showed that there was a range of temperature from 35.6 degrees centigrade, or 96 Fahrenheit, to 38.2, or 100.8. An overall mean of 36.8, a median of 36.8, and a mode of 36.7. Mean, median, mode. Doesn't that take you back? I had to look them up to help my son with his homework. But it's 98.2, not 98.6, that's the average temperature. And temperature varies during the day, with a nadir, not Ralph Nader, but a low point at 6 a.m., and a zenith, not the television, but the high point, at 4 to 6 p.m. So like a stopped clock being right twice a day, people are 98.6 twice a day. Once on the way up, and once on the way down. The big exception is ovulating females, but not, curiously, ovulating men, who are warmer in the morning. Patients use this fact, called the rhythm method, as a form of birth control. A medical term for these people is parents. Quote, women had a slightly higher average oral temperature than men, at 36.9 versus 36.7. One could say that women are hotter than men, or maybe men are cooler than women. Black subjects exhibited a slightly higher mean temperature and a slightly lower average diurnal temperature oscillations than white subjects, 36.8 versus 36.7. End quote. There was no difference between smokers and non-smokers, though they did not measure IQ. So what's a fever? Depends on the time of day. Quote, fever is most appropriately defined as an early morning temperature of 37.2 or greater, or a temperature of 37.8 or greater at any time during the day. End quote. The other way to judge a fever is to have my wife hold her hand against your forehead. At least where the children are concerned, she says this is more reliable than a thermometer. This is of practical importance, as I have seen a couple of patients a year with the diagnosis of fever of unknown origin who, it turns out, took their temperature at 4 in the afternoon, and by golly, it was 99.9, as it was on each subsequent day. Well, since normal temperature is 98.6, they have a fever. Patients can get thousands of dollars wasted on the workup of these non-existent fevers. Normal temperature, 98.6, is one of many medical misunderstandings. The mean is actually 98.2, and it will vary by 1.5 degrees during the day. Now that I've done Calor, I suppose I now need to do Rubor, Dolor, and Tumor as well. The relevant article was from JAMA, Volume 268, Number 12, September 23, 1992. A critical appraisal of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, the upper limit of normal body temperature, and other legacies of Karl Reinhold August Wunderlich. Everybody who looks at vital signs needs to read this paper. And that ends another award-winning Gobbet Opus. Don't forget to feed my ravenous ego by writing me a glowing review on iTunes. I'm not in this for the money, because I'm not making any, but I am in it for the glory and ego boo.